Namaskar and welcome to Weekly Global Insights, episode 320. Please click on the like button so it can reach its maximum potential. Today is Friday, the 11th of March, and here is what is going around the globe. Russia, Ukraine, Europe developments, EU discussions on Ukraine on Thursday, meetings, no fast tracking of EU membership needs unanimity. Germany advocated deeper partnership rather than immediate membership. Others, economic integration and free and democratic Ukraine. So within the EU, there are some differences. The EU has a moral responsibility to make Ukraine a member of state, asserts Estonia Prime Minister. Latvian Member of Parliament, 𝙒𝙗𝙤𝙦, joins legions of French fighters in Ukraine. Let us welcome our co-host Sridharji. Sridharji, what do you make of all these EU membership developments, sir?
Well, I think that if there was no clear message going to Mr. Vladimir Putin, I think the message is going on loud and clear, which is namely they would like to see a democratic and free Ukraine. There is no question of their NATO membership that has been explicitly declined contrary to Vladimir's views. And the other perspective is that notwithstanding the fact that they have been asking for EU membership, they are saying that it will not be fast-tracked, and the EU tradition of unanimity will be pursued as a framework of set of rules that EU follows. So none of these things, is going to make any credence to Mr. Putin, and nor Zelensky's aspiration to fast track himself into EU, which implicitly means or explicitly means that he deserves protection. So yes, there is a lot of caution and concern. While they prefer a democratic, Ukraine and independent and integration of economic partnership, they are not going to rush and make hasty decisions. I think that's the message.
And Chevron CEO says that Israel gas pipelines could help Europe amid crisis. Sridharji, we have mentioned this in one of our earlier episodes that Israel has a big oil strike and that it has been talking with Greece and Cyprus and Turkey to be able to lay out a pipeline. This is a natural gas across to mainland Europe, sir.
Well, I think all options are now coming under consideration. I'm not sure what many media outlets are publishing and what the perceptions are. The reality is, unless there is a withdrawal, which I don't see, in any seeming possibility as far as Russia is concerned, the sanctions are imminent. The sanctions are going to be biting, and there is going to be alternative mechanism that is going to be put in place, both to address the energy as well as the gas needs. So all options will come under the table. And I think even now, Germany, and most importantly, Germany is willing to accede. If not immediate, there has to be a transition out of Russian dependency.
Ukraine Foreign Minister says that Russian officials live in their own reality after talks fail. According to US officials, Russian troops have made progress towards Kyiv after ceasefire talks fail. Besieged Ukrainians continue to endure bombardment and shelling and are willing to fight on as the refugee numbers cross 2 million. Sridharji, this is a third round or second round of talks, sir?
Third round of discussions have failed. Yeah, third round of discussions have failed. This was hosted by Turkey, and I think that they're basically saying both sides have taken a very hard stand. I just don't see, unless there is a dramatic set of events that unfolds, either party is going to concede. With regard to the intelligence, I've seen now some of the satellite images, coming through unofficial and official channels. The Russian army has dispersed, and they are not going to be vulnerable to the satellite or drone attacks, the drone attacks. They have gone into the forests and they have dispersed in small numbers around the urban areas or semi-urban areas, and they're not too far from the city of the main city center of Kyiv.
And Vladimir Putin says Russia will beat the sanctions and emerge stronger. Russia disputes reports of bombing at maternity hospital in Mariupol, calling it as a fake news. No nuclear war, says Lavrov. Only West keeps bringing it up. We have alternate markets for oil and gas and are not reliant on the West. Sridharji, this is an interesting story or interesting exclamation by the Russian foreign minister, sir.
Well, I mean, Lavrov is a very, very seasoned diplomat. I mean, he has lived through and seen through many, many incidences, combats, and missions, and the UN, confrontations. So he's, running the diplomatic show quite well. He says that, we are not pressing the nuclear button. It's only West which is claiming it. He says, you want to impose sanctions? No problem. We'll both Lavrov and Mr. Putin are saying that, they will emerge stronger. He says that we're not reliant. If West is going to cut off our gas and oil, no problem. We'll find alternate markets. To me, that's a bravado rather than the reality.
And Ukraine operates about a dozen labs engaged in research on biological warfare defenses and other medical research. And US DNI officials are worried that they could fall into Russian hands. Sridharji, this is a serious development, as now we are getting also the official funding details of the virus labs in Wuhan also, sir.
Well, I think this is a very serious development. Let us wait. There is, as the day breaks in United States, there is a very strong indication that Russia and China jointly are calling for the UN Security Council meeting to discuss this specific issue. And the Russian claim is that they have collected evidence which says that West was preparing for a biological warfare and they were hiding these labs in Ukraine. United States says that is rubbish. And as far as we are concerned, our concern is that if it falls into the Russian army's hands, then they could use this as a tool to not only threaten, but come desperate situation, they could unleash some of the stuff in those labs. So I think we will probably hear more about this either in a separate session, or if Monday is too late, we will try to update prior to that. But this is, as Sriji points out, it's a very serious situation that is developing. It'll be interesting to see how exactly the truth unfolds. Yes, this is following on the back heels of the controversy that surrounded the Wuhan labs.
And that one is amazing. We are going to again try and see if we can get a separate 5-10 minute schedule on that. The details are stunning, Sridharji, and now it's officially out. The number of payments that were made, and Dr. Fauci and his wife both have their they were getting money paid from all these things. It's just incredible. That report is a smoking gun in itself. 538 pages of it. Anyway, we'll come back to you on that one. And let's take a quick look at US news. Republicans say that Biden administration abused intelligence to cancel Polish jet offer and critique Biden administration positions on not sending military jets to Ukraine. I think maybe we can, couple of minutes, sir. The offer was that Poland wanted to give MiG-529s to US, and somehow something went wrong and US said no. What really happened, sir?
The apparent intelligence that is cited by one side of the Biden administration is that any such attempt could escalate war and could result in US being dragged into it. Whether this intelligence is true or whether this intelligence was, as somebody called, placed in to influence the decision is the question that is being raised by the Republicans. Apparently, the Polish were ready, and I don't know about the Germans because it's going to the Ramstein base. From there, it was supposed to go to Ukraine. So this whole confusion around the truth behind the intelligence and whether the intelligence was actually abused in the wrong way to deter this decision is what the Republicans are questioning, and the Republicans are saying these planes should have been delivered by Poland to Ukraine.
And US response to Russian nationalization of industry, threats with investments, and global consequences of isolation. Many oil tankers are now rejecting transport of Russian gas and oil, fearing consequences and economic sanctions impact. So, Sridharji, again, this is now the sanctions are beginning to bite Russia. And Lavrov's statement just a few minutes ago sounds bravado.
Lavrov's statements, is a testimony to his bravado. You can expect somebody to come out and say, well, we have real problems here and we are willing to negotiate. That's not, Russia is a superpower, at least it's a perceived superpower within the context of their defense capabilities. It's an entirely different matter on the economic front. So I think they've taken a position. But when you look at the exodus of industries, I've not seen in my 45 years of professional career that, the exodus that we are seeing, where people are quitting a nation. It's not just like temporary halting of operations. They are unwinding the businesses, which tells you that there is a significant long-term consequences that the country is going to face as a result. Come to, the worst news that is emerging for Russia, even as these other news unfolds, is that that many international tankers are unwilling to transport the gas and the crude, which is not flowing through the pipes, because they believe either they're not going to get the money or they're going to be under the radar of, people who are against this war.
And White House says it is close to rejoining Iran nuclear deal. Iranians say Russians are trying to sabotage the deal by taking it over. White House disputes report that Saudi Arabian leaders refuse Biden call. US needed their very best and not Kamala Harris in Poland, according to critics. Sridharji, last one first. Kamala Harris was seen to be quite well in the previous Munich conference. Sir. Why is she not the best? I mean, she's just conveying the message of the administration, isn't it?
I think you are stirring me up here. But anyway, I will respond, Sriji. No, our Munich conference was a disaster. So therefore, it's not something that she went on to say that the sanctions are a deterrence, and everybody said it's a laughing matter that sanctions have never worked anywhere. So for a vice president to stand up and say the sanctions are going to work and it's a deterrence and Mr. Putin is not going to do anything, and just everybody said, is this the vice president of the United States? So she turned out to be a disappointment in that they sent her back into Poland as well as Lithuania. I think in both circumstances, she seems to have contradicted. I want to be very careful. She seems to have contradicted, then subsequently it's been patched up, even around this, the MiG-29 deal. So I think this is where the critics have picked up and said, my God, we had a problem in Munich. Why did you send her back to this place, Sriji? I hope I've answered the question the way you wanted it.
Sergi, all I was looking at was some reports. Who knows? These days, narratives are always, you have to be taking them with a pinch of salt. That is why I said that, sir. I have not watched the press conferences or anything like that. I have not made any independent observations on my own. Erdogan asks Biden to lift unjust sanctions on Turkey's defense. Turkey's steelmakers grab market share from China, Russia, and Ukraine. What are the curbs on Turkey's defense, Sridharji?
I think basically the J-35. Basically because of the S-400. Turkey was the first nation, and India was supposed to be the second, or whichever is the sequence. The story is that the F-15 and F-16 deal was to be supplanted by the J-35, and that deal was stalled because they believed this S-400 would compromise. So therefore, there was a ban put on not only that, but other strategic defense supplies that was to go to Turkey. So this is where Turkey has come up and said, look, I'm standing by you, West. I am, creating the blockade in Black Sea. I'm with you. I'm holding the discussions. I stood with you in United Nations in condemning and supporting the sanctions initiated by West you got to come out of the bunker and help me out. This is what Turkey is saying. The two very important developments in this. One is Turkey and Iran railing against Russia is a very significant development in the overall, geopolitical shifts that is taking place. Both these nations were historically at least tried to be closer to Russia.
And Republicans and Senator Manchin are upping the ante on Biden administration and energy companies to step up production than focus on clean energy. Biden and company are yielding driven by prices. Are there any announcements that the Keystone shall be reopened now, Sridharji?
I think I'm not sure about Keystone as yet that is being pursued, but the contractor who was responsible for Keystone has said, tomorrow if you tell me you turn on, no, you got to pay me penalties and I'm not willing to turn on. That's his position. This is about enhancement and approval of the existing leases which were suspended as a result of the climate accord. And there's also other licenses that they had asked for, having identified the areas where they can go further, explore, and generate or produce the oil from. So I think these are all those steps that the oil industry or the gas and energy industry are reaching out to. And I think Manchin is saying, go ahead, let us lift it, he's made a very interesting statement, which is very typical of from a democratic, focus on exploration, but do not focus on profits. This was his, statement. Whereas the other those who support and those who have been for on the Republican side are saying, come on, lift the sanctions and lift the what you call as the restrictions that have been placed on the oil industry and the energy gas industry. And it's time that we push and we become self-reliant and we augment the needs of the Europeans rather than continuing to be reliant on the Russians.
Sridharji, other than the strategic petroleum reserve, has the United States found an alternate supplier for the 8% intake that they used to get from Russia, sir?
No. The answer is no.
All right. Biden and his administration continue to advocate this approach of dramatic expansion to migration pathways. I'm trying to wrap my head around what this means, sir. The migration is the illegal migrations we're talking about?
Well, it is, which is namely that what he's saying is we need to fast track all these people who have come in and find a quick path mechanism for normalization and granting them expeditious, green card or citizenship process. So I think this is where his focus seems to be, rather than focusing on the major crisis that is confronting the industry. Now, just to respond, when I gave a short, crypt answer of no, this is the asymmetric demand. So demand is shooting up, where the supply, there is no augmentation. I mean, when they say there's sanctions, it doesn't stop tomorrow. There is some element of, there's a time gap between the time the supply that is received runs out and before it is augmented. That is why the prices are going up, because the supply is being trickle-fed, recognizing we don't know where, how this is going to be replenished. So that is why there is no alternative. As far as the immigration issue is concerned and fast track to citizenship, this is the issue that Biden is saying we must focus on.
And Biden administration passes an executive order that will research and investigate potential design and deployment efforts on US central bank digital currency. It's called CBDC. The Fed will also be tasked to assess its impact on efficiency that it can provide to monetary systems and as a stabilization tool. Is this US's reply to the digital renminbi, Sridharji?
This is a response to digital renminbi. This is a response to digital yen. I think the writing is on the wall. We covered this at least in two specific issues.
Months ago.
Huh?
Months ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Months ago. Yeah,
exactly. So, central bank as well as from the Treasury side, Janet Yellen is running to run a task force, and from the Fed side, Dr. Jerome Powell is supposed to run a task force to look at this. I think US is beginning to see that it has to respond and have to have a digital currency, especially for government to government and government to business types of transactions. It cannot be left behind if the top two currencies that are traded other than euro is moving towards a digital mechanism.
And Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are unwinding their Russian businesses, becoming the first US major banks to exit. This has serious implications, sir. These two are like the gods of banking.
Well, I think that we saw the industry exodus. You name the industry, they all have wound up, from Disney to Coke to Starbucks to all these industries. Two Japanese industries have also announced, major corporations have announced their exit. Now comes the banks. When JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs says they're unwinding their businesses, it means a significant step in the impact on the financial ecosystem as far as the Russia is concerned. But these guys are, big debt underwriters, as well as trade finance support for the Russian energy industry. Citibank is not yet made a decision who is the other big player in the market. Deutsche Bank, which is the German bank, has made it very clear that they have a long-standing relationship. So at this stage, they are not making an announcement to quit. The writing will be on the wall as far as the banking industry is concerned when Deutsche Bank leaves Russia.
Sridharji, I want to try and distinguish between Putin and the Russian people. Now, many Russian people, I'm told, don't totally trust their currency. Who can blame them? And they all have a little bit of currency in foreign currency. And it could be in accounts from where now it looks like it's all frozen. The ruble has dropped from 75 to close to 150 now, 150 now. And this has happened over the last 4 weeks or so. I mean, sanctions, if they start hurting the people, is that the right way to go, sir? Is there a way? Because what will happen, I can tell you how it will play out. Then there will be a humanitarian aid 3 months down the road. Basically, US will make Russia completely poor. I mean, they got a fairly high standard of living over the last 4 years, thanks to a good oil price, and then you're dragging them down all the way down. That's how I see it, sir.
No, I think you need to. Your observations are, in a macro sense, spot on. Now let's look at the important aspect that you talked about. Visa, MasterCard payment systems are used within Russia by retail or general Russian consumers or people. If MasterCard Visa decides to shut down that network, both domestically as well as internationally, when Russians travel, they will not be able to use these Visa, MasterCard. So banks will have to issue another, their domicile cards, which they will be able to do it, but there is an element of inconvenience. The cash replenishment and other things that take place has also been managed by they're closely coordinated with the MasterCard Visa issuers, because they know the replenishment levels, etc. They track the transactions. So all the things, let us say they have a short-term pain, but eventually Russia will tackle that. But the exodus of the industry and the financial sanctions, where it has consequences, is first on the jobs, because people are going to be not having jobs which otherwise is available. So there is going to be a consequences on income, etc. There is no robust social payment and social welfare system in Russia to augment immediately. So that's one consequence. The second consequence is, if the Russian coffers is not filled, and if the currency is already, if it is trading at a 20% interest rate imposed by central banks, if the currency is depreciated by 30%, 35%, as the case may be, then the ability of the Russian government to conduct and execute any of its programs to its masses is going to have a problem. So this is what has not been properly dimensioned and communicated by the media, which is playing both sides of the coin. For somehow, the media perceives any or the general public perceives any anti-Russian position is considered as liberal media. Any pro-Russian position is considered as any pro-Russian position is considered as anti-liberal, and any anti-Russian position is considered as pro-liberal. I'm repeating myself here, but this is the general impression. That is why you see there is so much of flashback from the, what I don't say from the right side. The right side is also supporting the liberals here, or the right and left are supporting. But these general people who have anti-West perceptions feel that West is taking a very, very negative stand on Russia without realizing. I mean, you're only seeing the physical damage that is being caused on Ukraine. Nobody is assessing what is the economic damage which you are highlighting and pointing out, which is causing to the Russian common man. And has Russian common man ever been asked, do you guys support this government? Any dissent in Russia is put down. Any adverse media is put down. So this is what you have seen. So the question that you are raising can only be answered if there is a fair and transparent feedback that Vladimir Putin allows, rather than people making an assumption that he has been incorrectly and improperly subjected to the Western prejudice.
And in Asia news, South Korea elects a new leader and the world awaits changes and direction as he faces early diplomacy test with Japan. They have been uneasy bedfellows for the longest time. Why did South Korea have to go with a new leader, Sridharji?
Well, I think that there are two issues. I think the one issue that is brewing is this consistent tensions that is emerging, both from North Korea and from the Japanese side, plus tensions with China. Historically, China, to some extent, has been a very influential player in Korea. US has been the stabilizing player from the defense perspective. I think Korea has also mismanaged, which is not reported. The COVID has been mismanaged within the mainstream South Korean peninsula. So therefore, you have that as well being felt through in the elections, which is to say, could they have managed better? I think we gave you a number some 2-3 shows ago, South Korea today is within the top 5 active COVID cases in the world.
And North Korea is developing a new long-range missile system according to US intelligence. This after it tested the new intercontinental ballistic missile system. North Korea to also launch satellites to spy on the United States and its allies. Sridharji, North Korea doesn't have food for its people, but they have a very aggressive armament and nuclear weapons program, sir.
They have. They're very successful. To counterbalance the geopolitics, will not be surprised if Iranians, Russians, Chinese all have supplied capabilities to a dictator who doesn't care about his people, but who is a toy, who is used, rather than Russia, China spying. He, boast of his ego, give him the tools, give him the toys, and he does the work for them. That's exactly what is going on.
And viewers, before I continue to the next line item, I request you all to join our WhatsApp business group. It's an easy number to remember, 1234-2559-123, 10 digits. And then you will be getting notifications of all our new articles. And that way you don't have to, go to any place. It will be one-stop shop. We are also trying to make our apps more robust. There's going to be a video on that as to how you can have your own Android or iPhone app of PGurus, and that gives you a lot of information in a much easier to read manner. So stay tuned on all that. We're trying our best to keep you up to date with our latest enhancements. So stay tuned. Japan reverts to old line aggression on Russian-controlled islands after Ukraine, shedding nuances. US will not ask Japan to limit Russian oil imports. And MUFG Group devotes $300 million to direct stakes in Indian startups. Sridharji, first off, so is US saying Russia can continue to export oil to Japan, sir?
What? No, import oil from Russia
No,
can
Russia to
continue.
export.
Yeah,
Russia
correct.
export to Japan. Same thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, correct. You're right. Russia exporting to Japan is, they're saying, Japan can continue its imports for a period of time until an alternate source is found. You don't cut off. Remember that Japan has had major disasters. It had to shut down its nuclear reactors after
Fukushima.
the tsunami. Yes, Fukushima. And so, therefore, you can't overnight shut off. So, they're saying that allow it to continue for a period of time. But that message is very clear from Russia to Japan and Japan to, sorry, from Japan from US to Japan. The question though is, how is this going to flow through, and how Japan is going to make its payments, because Japan is one of the first institutions which has cut off access and cut off its banks' access to the SWIFT payment methods. So it's going to be interesting to see how all this is going to pan out. It's a different stuff making a statement and a different stuff actually putting it to practice. So some of the US policy decisions such as this and public statements such as this is what is irritating a number of people, which is to say, does US have any common sense in issuing such types of statements when it knows that execution of these things is almost impossible?
And Indonesia's President Jokowi calls for immediate ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine war. Taiwan says China closed off part of South China Sea to look for its crashed plane. Wow. So how can you close off the entire sea, sir? Were they like embargoing?
No, I think they're parts of the what they call as the international waters. Parts of that, they can put a blockade. I don't remember the exact configuration, but this is one of these reconnaissance planes, which is supposed to be like a stealth, some J8. As I say, I don't know the configuration. My memory fades here, but this is one of the planes which disappeared in March. They first disclaimed it. It was reported by Vietnam, and it was also reported by Philippines, because those islands are proximus. But now it has come out that these fellows are actively searching. They do not want it to fall into the wrong hands.
Well, US managed to recover its own plane, so there is heat on China now to do its own. So let's take a look at India news. This is going to be very interesting. First off, there was a video, I think PGurus was the first one to report this, a video of a claim from Pakistan that a supersonic missile came from India and crashed into Pakistan, 124 kilometers inside. And they said that now Pakistan's defenses stand completely exposed. We didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. It went on. But India side said nothing until just 5 minutes ago, sir. I saw a statement from the Indian defense establishment that there was a misfiring of a missile and that they have ordered a high-level inquiry. So this is just the beginning. We'll give you some more news as it develops. So stay tuned on that. India needs to be connected to countries involved in war, but we are always for peace and that all problems get resolved through dialogue, according to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Sridharji, again, this is India's call saying that, look, stop fighting, let us start talking, right?
Well, I think, I have a view which I will share, which is namely, I think India has to, is in a position of influence. India has to take a much more assertive position. And you may see in this global shakeup that is taking place, China may just press ahead. They're just waiting for an opportunity to emerge as the global czar and the superpower that is willing to resolve an issue. Because clearly, US has failed and US is, fast lost the credibility. EU has very limited leadership. The perception is and probably the reality. To some extent, China winked its eyes as Russia made the invasion. But there is a growing element of discomfort within China in terms of the path that Russia is pursuing, most notably after the Mariupol disaster of striking a hospital. So India is continuing to play the same tune, which is to say we have to be connected with Ukraine, we have to be connected with Russia, we have to be connected with the Belarus. But we advocate diplomacy, and we feel that that's the only way this matter can be resolved. Now the question is, has the diplomacy worked after 3 rounds of discussions? No.
And India's growth rate for fiscal year 2022-23 is expected to be 7.8%, with an 8.9% growth rate projected for 2021-22. Institutions cut the growth rate by 0.5% impacted by the Russian crisis. IMF has also cut global growth rate for calendar year 2022 in its latest release. We'll touch on this a little bit later, sir, because we have a fair amount of news to cover still. Modi's focus in his address to global investor community was on strategic opportunities as he pursued the 1.62 lakhs asset monetization program for fiscal year 2023. Government is expected to exceed its targets of 88,000 for fiscal year 22. So India is laying out the red carpet. Now, I haven't read the fine print. The question always comes back to repatriation of profits. Do you have any update on that, Sridharji?
Well, I think that there are 2 things here. One is the asset monetization program is about sale of government properties and government infrastructure and government projects. So these are projects and programs where there is a direct investment, and the investment, when I say investment into projects rather than investment into companies. Okay, or companies establishing businesses in India, and this is where your specific question comes to, which is namely, are you able to transfer fully your profits, or are you expected to retain some element of profits? So just to clarify the point, I'll answer your question. This specific 1.63 crores program is about ports and airports and infrastructure and roadways and new kind of capabilities that India is building. It is asking international institutions, institutional investors and private equity funds and sovereign funds to put their investments into play. And they have guaranteed returns because it is based on coupons, guaranteed returns. And there's no question of not being able to repatriate the profits on these specific programs. With regard to your question, which is namely, has government streamlined as yet the amount of profits that can be repatriated, and is it seamless, or there's still some constraints? I think there are still some constraints. The only thing, to my knowledge, that they have removed is this retrospective taxation issue that was bugging the people and bugging the institution. That issue, after a long time, I think about 6, 7, 8 months ago, that issue has been put to rest. But whether there are still riders, there are still some questions that haven't been answered.
And viewers, you can watch this conversation with Gauri Dwivedi on the impact of the increased petrol prices, on how it's going to play out in the economy of India in the weeks and months to come. A lot of information that she has put out, very, very useful. At least it kind of, weathers you for the shock that is coming your way. India's coal imports could be highest in 2 years from Russia as the sanctions bite, and with Russia cut off from the SWIFT system. India may tap its FTA, free trade agreement, with the United Arab Emirates to tap oil supply as the Brent crude dropped to 125 from 131. Is this a temporary thing, sir, or is it for good?
There is a growing feeling, barring United States, rest of the world is recalibrating itself slightly better in terms of augmenting the supplies. US is fairly large. It has an asymmetric distribution. For example, you asked me the question, is there an immediate alternative fund? Russian goes to some of the border states, especially some of the border regions of United States, especially in the northwest as well as in the northeast parts of United States. They're not that easy to be augmented unless Canada lifts up the supplies, which they are reaching out to. But then you kill Keystone pipeline, and then ask yourself, you also killed that Michigan pipeline, and then you begin to say, oh, increase the supply, but just we chopped off the pipes that come into your country. So I think Canada is saying, you killed Keystone, okay? And now you're telling me, you not only killed Keystone, you killed the phase 2 of the Michigan pipeline, which again we have covered extensively in daily global insights. So price reduction is more as a result of the volatility and the uncertainty of the geopolitics rather than any augmentative effect on the supplies.
And there are no surprises, and Canadian Foreign Minister to arrive in India for free trade agreement talks. This is the last item. Sridharji, please summarize it for us, and then we can close this episode.
Well, I think what you are seeing here is, I don't know whether Indian mainstream media covers this, but from an economic management point of view, Modi has done a remarkable job as a leader relative to any of his counterparts, be it Shinzo Abe, be it Boris Johnson, be it Joseph Biden, or be it a consortium of EU leaders. He has done much better in leveraging every opportunity that has come his way. Agricultural exports, wheat exports, increasing his reserves as and when he found the opportunities to create the export market, bringing some of the industries home through his PLI programs, his asset remonetization and disinvestment program, notwithstanding all the criticisms that people levy, his FY21 goal is going to be met, which is 50% of his FY22 goal is going to be met, and FY23 goal is double. So in my economic banking sense, then when I look at the macro parameters of how he has managed the economy, not taking his eyes off, he has done it relatively better. Much better, not relatively better, much better. He has also increased the reserves during this specific phase. To just wrap up the point, look at him. He is saying, I have free trade agreements. To some extent, I was involved way back. This agreement with UAE. It may not take the call from United States, but it takes the call from India. And the bilateral trade expansion that has taken place between India and UAE, as well as UAE rising to the occasion to meet the needs. There is the strategic reserve, which is fixed at a specific price. They are saying they may tap into it, to provide a cushion at the pumps. None of these things have been put in place in the most developed economies, such as Europe or in United States. United States, we have gone from net exporter to an abysmal disaster in less than 14 months.
Yes, indeed. And that's all for today, folks. Please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to click on the bell button. And we'll be back again bright and early on Monday. We're going to give you in our Show More section a couple of references that we talked about in this show, about other videos that we have put out in the last few days. So you can go and watch them also. Again, please pass the news to your friends and family. We are always data driven. The data takes us somewhere. Don't take us that we are left-leaning, right-leaning. We are data-leaning. That's all it is. Thank you very much, Sridharji. Namaskar.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. And, we'll be back on Monday.